identity is very diverse and many things. And among these things is an amazing Jewish heritage. Identity, for me, is about politics, your experiences, and your convictions. And what I want to tell you today is how this identity builds, adapts, and evolves. It's a Moroccan story, it's a political story, but it's also, as it is our theme today, a story of the I and also a story of the W of the we, us, always, and the W of the world. So I hope you are ready to travel. Attali, the French essayist and writer, who wrote that to speak of identity is not, in general, to say what we are, but to list what we are not. This was written about 10 years ago, I think in November 2009. And basically what Attali, that you probably know, is saying is that when we talk about identity, first we're talking about excluding, not including. We're talking about fear. And remember, one of the books that had the most success last year was exactly titled Fear, written by Bob Woodward of the Washington Post, and it's about the Trump presidency. From DC to Manhattan, where Kwame Anthony Appiah teaches at NYU and where he published The Lies That Bind. And what Appiah is saying, he tells the story of how in his self-introduction to people, he basically conveys three things. I am a man, I am not a white man, and I speak the Queen's English. Appiah is of a father from Ghana, a mother from the UK. But he adds also, okay, I convey the fact that I am a white man, that I am a man, sorry, that I am a black man, and that I speak the Queen's English, but this doesn't say anything about my values and about my experiences. And in fact, Appiah, to give you the context, starts his book exactly, in his intro, he starts by telling a story of riding cabs in cities. Like when he is in Sao Paulo, the cab driver thinks he's Brazilian. When he is in Paris, the cab driver thinks he's a North African immigrant. When he is in Rome, the cab driver thinks he's from Ethiopia. And when he is in Tangier, the cab driver thinks he's Moroccan or American. And basically, what is Appiah telling us? First, that one's identity also depends on how the other sees us. And he also warns us, be always ready to be confronted to that kind of situation. And third, what he's saying, and what also Attali is saying, and what our globalization is saying, is that our identity today is evolving. It is changing. But are we, us, the citizens of the world, the citizens of the south of the Mediterranean, of the north of the Mediterranean, of the east of the Mediterranean, ready to adapt? And I think that in this question, are we ready to adapt? We have a part of the answer in what happened in Morocco in 2011 with the writing of the new constitution. And that constitution, I think, contains something really interesting. It was saying basically that the cultural influences of Morocco are Muslim, Arab, Amazigh, Hassani, etc., etc., and Hebraic. and Jewish. And that's very important because in Arab lands and Muslim lands, we have problems in recognizing Jewish heritage, as in Jewish land, in Israel, we will see it at the end, they have problem recognizing Arab heritage, as we have seen last year with the Jewish nation-state law. So this is interesting because when you introduce such element in a constitution in a country, and you know that in any country in the world, you don't change constitutions like you change shirts every other year or every other decade. I mean, a constitution is something that really sets up the pillars of your political identity and of your cultural identity. So it's something very important. And this is why I link the text of the Moroccan Constitution of 2011 with what is your identity, what is politics, what is your experiences, and what is your convictions. And you know, as a Moroccan, I grew up in Casablanca first, Tangier second, I mean, communities that are in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and in communities that are really cosmopolitan, multicultural, and with different communities, and with coexistence between Arab Muslim communities and Jewish communities, but also very important because we have to, as was saying one writer, we have to see what we see. We have to see what we see, not only describe what we see. And also mistrust, because we were Arabs and Jews, and there was coexistence and mistrust because in the middle of us, all the time, every year, every week, there were politics. War in 67, assassinations, hijackings, war in 73, Lebanon, Gaza, etc., etc. So, as a Moroccan Arab, how do you deal with these contradictions? Although you have also other things that have been happening, you know, in terms of politics, positive things. What Bourguiba was saying about Arab-Jewish coexistence in Palestine, what King Hassan was doing with the Jewish community and Israeli politics, what some Moroccan Jews were doing in Paris with Identité and Dialogue, or in Jerusalem with another association called Beyachad, which in Hebrew means together. So in face of this information and contradictions, what do you do? Basically, my choice, personally, who was very curious about this, is that from my student years, I just decided to do a very simple thing, to learn more, to know more, and really to dig in. And when I started to dig in, I discovered, I mean, true marvels, and I mean it, and true wonders in different fields. I obviously, as you can guess, when you are curious about something different from you, or you are curious about something next to you, you start to learn the language, Hebrew. And you discover things that are just amazing. For instance, to love in English, in Hebrew, it's ohev. In Arabic, it's uhib. And another word, welcome. Welcome in English. And in Hebrew, it's baruch haba. In Arabic, it's marhaba. It's amazing. In politics, you would meet people that are incredible. People who have lived in Morocco, people who have been in Marrakesh, I know, I look at some friends in the room, they know it. The Moroccan Jewish community is amazing, and among the amazing things that marks the Moroccan Jewish community is that it has claimed, whether it is here in Morocco or in Paris or in Jerusalem, that they are Arab Jews. I mean, they say we are Arab Jews. And you know, when Jews say we are also Arabs, for other Jews, they're like, oh, no, we are Jews, we are not Arabs, and etc. So it's really amazing to see. But Identité and Dialogue, and you know, the main figure of Identité and Dialogue became one day a counselor of the royal cabinet, and he still is, and he is someone whom I met in the 80s to get more information about all this field of Moroccan Judaism. In brief, in language, in politics, and then, again, very surprisingly and incredibly amazing, I would say, in creed, in religion. This country, Morocco, when I started to dig in, what I would learn that you have literally dozens of saints and shrines that are adored by both Muslims and Jews. Muslims and Jews in this country go to the same places to pray God and to ask for whatever you do in a temple, etc., etc. There are a few cases in Tunisia, but this is the only Muslim country on this scale. The fourth element is, I will leave it for the end of this presentation, is cultural and has to do with music, and it's also absolutely amazing. So once you have done all this search, this research, you have done this journey, this travel, you say, well, on Arab-Jewish field, on Israeli-Arab, on the Arab-Israeli world, you have maybe solved a few things. But no, you haven't solved anything, because you are dealing with Arab-Jewish issues, Arab-Israeli issues, and which means that whatever your knowledge is, whatever your goodwill is, whatever your communication is, you always have heavy politics in the middle. Heavy politics in the middle. I mean, this is the Middle East. This is the Middle East, North Africa region. So, to illustrate this, I would like to give you two examples that relate to one another. Two examples that are 30 years apart. When I started to get into like studies on Moroccan Judaism, mostly in the States, I was on campus at NYU in Manhattan, and a high-ranking Israeli politician came on campus to give a talk on Israeli politics and Israeli-Palestinian peace, etc., etc. So I was a student in political science, in Middle East studies, so I went to attend. And that high-ranking Israeli politician started by talking about, of course, the need of Israel for Jewish American community support, that the Israelis had to go on building a strong state because we could not trust the Arabs. So there I started to open my ears. We can't trust the Arabs. The Arabs only want to beat us, two. And I was surprised. I mean, we were at the end of the year of '88. So at the end of the talk, I just asked for the microphone, and I took the microphone and I said, "Sir," so that was the high-ranking Israeli politician. It was Benjamin Netanyahu. He was then the Israeli ambassador to the UN. This was 30 years ago. It's very interesting. And I said, "Sir, how can you talk about the Arabs this way in '88 when you have peace agreements with Egypt, with Jordan, talks with the Palestinian Authority, that Shimon Peres was just with the King Hassan in Ifran 2 years ago. And that most importantly, and something that people, I think, don't give much importance to, is that on the ground, in Israel, Palestinians, Israelis, Jews, Arabs, Christians, I mean, work on so many projects, political, cultural, business, with lots of success. And if you have been to the Middle East in the past years, and to Israel, and this is where I want to talk also about not only the Jewish heritage in Moroccan identity, but the Moroccan heritage in Israeli identity. Also, that is very important. I mean, anything Moroccan is the best thing you can have in Israel today. So the gentleman, you know, the diplomat, who is candidate for the elections in next April 9 in Israel, he said, "Oh, but you are telling me this, but where are you from?" I said, "Yes, I am of course from Morocco, but it does not prevent you from talking a little more, let's say, objectively about the whole situation, because we live in the same world. I mean, no, we live really in the same world. I mean, and when you are Moroccan, you feel that, and you know the Moroccan Jewish community, you feel that you are really in the same world. And 30 years after, last summer of 2018, it was really amazing to open on the web. You know, there is an Israeli web magazine that you may know, which is it's called the 972, which is the phone, the area code of Israel. And the title of the piece was, "What Israel Can Learn from Morocco's Multiculturalism." And it was drawing an interesting parallel between the Jewish nation-state law that was passed in Israel a year before, and that was excluding the Arab Israelis basically from the rank that they had, like the Jewish community, the Israeli Jews, putting them back, and comparing it to what Morocco was doing from 2011 by really including everything that belonged to its identity. So what we can learn from this is that, yes, your experiences are very important and your convictions are also very important. But don't forget that you are also in the Middle East. And like Charles de Gaulle said in the 60s, no simple ideas for the complicated Middle East. And before leaving you, I just want to tell you, remember I told you something about language, I told you something about politics, and I told you something about creed, and it remains only one thing about culture and about music, and it is pop Moroccan music played by the East-West Jerusalem Orchestra. And the lead singer of the East-West Jerusalem Orchestra is a Moroccan rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Louk. And it's, as I told you before, it's when you dig into Moroccan Jewish heritage, you only find marvels and wonders. Thank you, and enjoy the music.